Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and to this time-lapse version of a Hudson Bay wolf in soft pastel. If you enjoy this speedy version here, then maybe you would like to check out the full tutorial series coming from this over on my Patreon, where I'll go into super detail on each step of the way. But if you enjoy this version here, then please do hit subscribe and check out all my other playlists. This piece is 20 inches by almost 14 inches. I chose to work on the Canson velvet paper, and you can see that I chose to use a very warm yellowy orange colour, and I'll talk a little bit about that as I progress. But the reference image for this piece comes from a recent photo trip that I took to a wolf park called Lobo Park. It's in the south of Spain, and I now live reasonably close to this place. I've been eyeing it up for quite a long time, wanting to go there with my camera and get some really good wolf material to work from, as I really love to work from my own reference images when possible. And quite often I'm mixing and matching my reference images when it comes to painting wildlife, because a lot of the time I will go to parks or zoos or refuges, all sorts of places to try and capture wildlife that's more difficult for me to get where I live. But this place had the most beautiful settings as well. So you can see my reference image in the top left. I just wanted to paint this image as it was. I didn't have to change anything. And this beautiful, beautiful Arctic wolf, she really knew how to pose. And she just wandered over onto the tops of these rocks, stood herself in the one little slither of sunshine, and looked back at me like, is that okay? Like, that is absolutely perfect. And I got some amazing shots of her and of all of the other wolves at Lobo Park. So, a big thanks to the staff there. I had a wonderful tour from a really knowledgeable guide, and I will absolutely return again. But for the time being, I have an ocean of photo reference to work my way through. And I wanted to begin with this one because it was my absolute favourite shot of the day. Other shots that I have, I'm going to be doing some really super close-ups because, of course, part of the fun of painting a wolf is to get a really close-up look at their beautiful faces and all of that thick fur. But to get me started, I decided to start with something which I find a little bit trickier when I'm mixing in quite a lot of landscape with my wildlife. So it's getting that whole scene to work as one rather than just zooming in up close to the beautiful detail that you get on an animal's face. And I really love to work on both types of painting in soft pastel, because as well as being fantastic for creating animal fur, it's also a beautiful medium to work in when it comes to landscapes. And I like being able to challenge myself and mix the two together a little bit. And I also love landscape paintings that have wildlife in them, and vice versa, wildlife paintings that show a little bit of the setting or the habitat of the animal. And in this case, the background possibilities in Lobo Park were absolutely amazing, so natural looking. And then the day that I went, there was just absolutely perfect lighting as well. So I'm really looking forward to working through some of the images that I've taken and also sharing some more images over on Patreon with my patrons. So that's partly why I really like to go and take lots and lots of photos, because there's only so many of them that I am going to be able to paint myself. And those that I do paint, I will also make tutorial series from those. So you can learn with me step by step. This one is going to be on my Patreon very soon. And I will show the whole thing in real time, taking you step by step through the types of marks I'm making, the colors that I'm choosing. The color palette in this one is so important because of course the wolf herself is in a lot of shadow. And if you want to create really glowing edges to something, well, you need the contrast there. We've got to contrast those bright edges with enough dark tonal values to make the bright areas really, really stand out. So that's something I'll talk about a lot in this tutorial series because I find it quite tricky. There's so much color in the wolf, and you've really almost got to forget that it's a white colored animal that you're painting and just look with your eyes at what colors are really in there. And that's easier said than done sometimes. So that's something that I'll talk about a lot in the series. But there's also a lot to chat about when it comes to the background and the surrounding areas, making sure that the same warm lighting bounces off absolutely everything in the scene, tying it all together with the colours, creating what a lot of artists refer to as colour harmony. So a lot of the colours that I used in the background getting repeated on the wolf as well. And this is a Hudson Bay wolf. Apparently they have got black coloured skin, which is interesting. But when you see her fully in the sunlight, of course, she is all white and glowing. What I find most interesting about this reference image was the excuse to make use of all of these lovely blue violets and brown tones. So there's warm brown tones in her fur as well. And when you mix those two together, you get this lovely effect using the blue violets with the warmer orange browns. And then just look at how bright her edges are. I did bring in some pure white in this piece, just on the very, very brightest edges of the wolf. And then some of the edges of the wolf are a very pale blue colour. So if you look at the front of the wolf's chest and down the very far left side of the wolf, it's not bright white there when you compare it to the white areas. So I'm constantly doing that, comparing my values. And it's useful if you've got a really bright white area. Before putting white anywhere else, just quickly compare it to that bright white area. Is it really as bright as that? And if not, then you've got to pick up a different value. Avoid putting white there. Every time you put pure white somewhere that it's not meant to be, you lose the impact of those truly white areas. So the fun really happened when creating all of the different textures of the fur. She's got such thick fur, and I really wanted to try and capture that. So the undercoat has more of the warm colours, and then I'm using mostly the blue violet colours as the top layer on the fur. And I chose this warm colour of paper for that very reason. I knew that I was going to want some warmth in the undercoat of the animal and also some warmth shining through in my background as well. I knew also that I was going to make use of a lot of blue violet in this painting, and that contrasts really nicely with the warmth of a yellowy orange colour. So it was all about letting the warmth really radiate through in this piece. And sometimes to do that, I like to choose a warm coloured paper to work on. So a little bit of pastel pencil in this one. I used a little bit of brown just to come back through the fur and define some of the darker areas. I also used some pastel pencil around the nose and the eyes. But apart from that, it's mostly done using my soft sticks. And I've used a mixture of Unison soft pastels and some Terry Ludwigs, a few dark Terry Ludwigs, and a couple of nice green tones as well. And the only other thing that I've used in this piece is a hard black stick. I'm using the black new pastel. But a lot of my darks are done with a very dark eggplant colour from Terry Ludwig. So instead of using pure black throughout the whole piece, sometimes I like to make use of that dark Terry Ludwig eggplant colour. Again, it's not as cold as pure black, so it adds a bit of heat into even the darkest areas of the painting. So the rocks, I really loved how there's just a small window of light being cast across the rocks. And I just couldn't believe my luck that this beautiful wolf really positioned herself on that one little slither of light. It was a really magical time actually photographing this particular wolf. She was really engaged. And her level of posing, I mean, they told me that this wolf really likes to pose, but I didn't quite believe them until I saw it with my own eyes. I have some fantastic shots of this particular wolf. So the rocks and the wolf done, and I go back to the background. So I didn't initially finish off the entire background because sometimes I just run out of steam when it comes to backgrounds and landscape. So I did take a little break from that. And then with the wolf worked, somehow that gives me an extra bit of motivation now to go back and finish the background. So sometimes the order I do things in is more about keeping myself motivated, feeling good about the painting process as I progress. So there's not always a right or a wrong order to do things in. Sometimes it's just what I feel like doing. But I hope that you've enjoyed seeing this very speedy version because it was quite a big painting for me and quite a long process. Do come and check me out over on Patreon if you'd like to see this or any of my other paintings in real time. I have a huge library of real-time tutorials. The link to that in my description. And I look forward to sharing more wolf images with you very soon as well. But thank you so much for watching this here. And until next time, happy pasteling.